Canada and India share a robust bilateral relationship across a broad range of sectors. Our prime ministers have recognized the great potential between our two countries and have committed to increasing bilateral trade to $15 billion. Actually, for two economies with a combined GDP of more than $3.5 trillion, $15 billion is not enough. There's so much more that we can do together. I've been in India for 3 years, and I've been watching this debate and this conversation unfold in real time. It's quite amazing to see the election machine here and this conversation about how people engage in ethical business is an amazing thing to watch. And I'm quite honored to be here at this time to see that. We're encouraged, of course, and greatly interested in the CSR provisions in the updated Companies Act, and we are interested to see the impact that they will have on responsible business practices in India. Our companies, the Canadian companies who are invested here, predominantly look for stability and predictability, and I hope that, that this Companies Act will help them going forward. Also notice that this afternoon we'll be talking about CSR and HR, human resources, as well as the kind of 3 pillars that are essential to success in corporate social responsibility, and that is the involvement of government, corporations, and civil society. And I couldn't agree more, and I thought it might be useful to share our views from the Canadian perspective on this. So woven throughout Canada's approach to CSR is a commitment to encouraging responsible business practices by Canadian firms operating overseas, abroad, as well as in Canada. But since we're here, let's talk about how we do this overseas. And indeed, we not only encourage, but we actually expect, and we tell our companies this, we expect them to adhere to the highest ethical and legal standards wherever they're operating. This expectation involves helping Canadian companies succeed in a way that not only aligns with our values as a country, but can also contribute to the long-term prosperity both within Canada and in the countries and communities where our companies are operating. So in the multilateral context, Canada promotes international CSR standards in a number of fora, including at the OECD with the MNE guidelines for multinational enterprises. We also do this at the G8, at APEC, at the Organization of American States, La Francophonie. Of course, we're a bilingual country. No surprise and probably no great achievement to such a multilingual country as India, but we work hard at promoting a bilingual country and making sure that it's as inclusive as possible, and also in the Commonwealth, because like you, we are part of the Commonwealth. We've also played a major role in development of these kind of standards within the Kimberley process and at the ISO 26000, developing the ISO 26000 standard. This participation provides Canada with the opportunity not only to share knowledge, but also to work with others to promote and strengthen those international CSR guidelines. So Canada promotes CSR at the bilateral level as well through the inclusion of voluntary provisions for CSR in many of our foreign investment promotion and protection agreements, bilateral investment treaties, or I think you call them BIPAs here, and our free trade agreements. We also have the Corruption of Foreign Public Officials Abroad Act, which is an extraterritorially applied piece of legislation, and there has been quite a bit of enforcement activity on that of late. Our banks and our lenders must adhere to the IFC guidelines, and this is, has a major impact on our companies and how they operate overseas. If they want lending, they have to adhere to those standards as well. Canadian Trade Commissioners, that's my team and my group of people that I belong to, here in New Delhi, at our 7 offices across India, outside of New Delhi, and also at our more than 120 locations around the world, provide CSR-related advice and guidance to our companies as a part of our regular, everyday service. Our network of diplomatic missions abroad also actively promote awareness and understanding of the importance of responsible business practice, and we create opportunities for relationship building through conferences, workshops like this one, and other activities involving governments, representatives of host governments, and companies and civil society. Now, The Canadian extractive sector, in particular, is a significant contributor to Canada's economic growth and prosperity. In fact, 75% of the world's mining companies are headquartered in Canada. So I want to talk about that for just a minute. They also have a very strong international presence. Of course, many of them operate in difficult and dangerous places with little in the way of infrastructure, healthcare, education, opportunities, security, or governance. And so in light of that reality, in 2009, the Canadian government launched a CSR strategy entitled, and you were talking about the need for a strategy, our government has launched one called Building the Canadian Advantage, a corporate social responsibility strategy for the international extractive sector. It seeks to assist Canadian extractive companies in addressing the significant social and environmental challenges that they face when they go abroad. We also have two mechanisms to assist with company-community dialogue facilitation and conflict resolution. And this includes the review process of Canada's national contact point under the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises, as well as a mechanism that is unique to Canada, and it is called the Office of the Extractive Sector CSR Counselor. This is particularly for mining companies, and it's a bit of an ombudsman role, if you will. Communities can take their complaints to either of these places, and they will be reviewed, and they will be part of a process to try and facilitate dialogue and seek a resolution that's satisfactory to all. Doesn't always work, but we're trying, and these are obviously on the best efforts. Canada's undertaken efforts to promote conflict-sensitive business practices in conflict-affected states, assisting Canadian companies to seize business opportunities in challenging environments, while also bringing tangible stability and peace-building benefits to the communities. Canada has also been involved in efforts to create a global consensus on responsible mining and sourcing practices and to address the phenomenon of conflict minerals in gold, tin, tantalum, and tungsten sectors, as well as due diligence and sustainable sourcing within the garment industry. I also want to take a moment to highlight some of the CSR approaches taken by a couple of Canadian companies, three, that are operating here in India. The first example I'll speak about is Mccain Foods. When Mccain first entered India more than a decade ago, their first step, and before they got into production at all, their first step was to conduct research with the aim of limiting the environmental impact and ensuring profitable return, but driving positive change within the local market. So through a commitment to sharing of knowledge and technology transfer, Mccain increased the potato yields of their contract farmers from an average of 10 tons to 15 tons, where the farmers used to spend 23,000 rupees to grow potatoes on 1 viga of land and earn 28,000 rupees. Today, they've reduced their expenditures by 35% and increased profit by 104%. It's changed their lives. This has not only ensured Mccain's success in India, but it has dramatically improved the lives of more than 1,200 contract farmers. And they're growing every day, actually. They have to keep expanding because their popularity is increasing, and that's wonderful to hear. In fact, they're now starting to export from India to the region, so that's exciting too. Bombardier is another company I want to talk about just for a minute. It's a Canadian plane and train manufacturer. You've probably ridden on a Bombardier aircraft or maybe on the Delhi Metro, which is Bombardier train coaches. So I'm pleased to see that the discussions here go beyond philanthropy, because frankly speaking, I think that CSR is so much more than that. It's participation. It's access and benefits sharing, it's community engagement, it's health and well-being, and it's an investment by the companies and the corporates in an educated workforce, in a healthy workforce, in higher productivity and the sharing of ideas. And it's so much more than that. I mean, really, it's so many things. I'm very proud to say that the Canadian companies who are operating here also see that and see the potential for that. In fact, many Indian companies as well have been recognized in Canada for their contributions to the community and their active engagement in the locations where they are operating in Canada. And certainly Tata's and Birla's, Wipro, SR, and many others have made very conscious decisions to support and involve themselves in their communities in Canada, and it hasn't gone unnoticed. It really gives them that social license to operate, and they get the support of those communities where they are engaged. So as both global leaders and global citizens, the opportunity for companies to give back and manage themselves in a responsible manner is actually no longer an option. It is a necessity, and this is what we're talking about here. Reducing inequality, the eradication of poverty, economic empowerment, and environmental sustainability are goals which we all share. Governments, businesses, civil society, and consumers have a critical role to ensure that those goals are met. So let us work together to share those best practices and those policies and information for the benefit of all. And just to pick up on your comment, not just gambarimashou, but gambaranakucha. We must absolutely try our best. Thank you.